Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. On today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how to craft this beautiful shirt blouse with a lace back and a white sleeve. So if you enjoy watching sewing tutorial like this, watch the video to the end, and I'll be explaining the detail on how to achieve this blouse, both the cutting and the sewing. So let's start. Now the first thing I did was to mark out the starting line, and from the starting line I marked out 2 inches for my button allowance. So you can see me marking it down, and after I'm done with that I started with my shoulder to bust point, which is 10 inches, and shoulder to my waist, which is 16 inches, from my waist to hip, which is 7 inches. So I brought down the vertical line. So that's what I'm marking. I'm marking my waist to hip, which was 7 inches. I marked. So after I'm done with that, I went back to the the shoulder, and marked out my neckline, neck width of 2.5 inches, and the depth is 3 inches. Then I went back to my shoulder and sloped the shoulder by 1 inches. Then I connect it back to the neck tip. Now after I'm done with that, I went down and brought out my armhole depth. So I brought out my armhole depth and I brought out the chest line so you can see it. Then the next thing I did was to interpret my measurement. Now to interpret my measurement, I added 1 inches extra to my horizontal, my circumference. The circumference of my bust is 34. 34 divided by 4 give me 8.5. So I added 1 inches ease allowance to my measurements. So I'll be doing that to the waistline and the hip line. So on my waist, I marked my waist measurement plus 1 inches as my seam, that allowance, and ease 1 inches. I added 1 inches as ease allowance. So on the hip measurement, I did the same thing. Hip measurement divided by 4. I added ease allowance. Now after I'm done with that, now I'm marking the dart. The dart is my apex to apex, that's my nipple to nipple, which is 7. 7 divided by 2 gave me 3.5 inches. So on my waistline, I marked 3.5 inches. So I'm bringing out my dark leg of half inches. You know, I told you I added 1 inches to my waist measurement. So this is basically the basic block I'm drafting. Now I'm bringing out my bust dart. My bust dart is 1.5. That's the difference between my front shoulder to waist and my back shoulder to waist. My front shoulder to waist is 16, while the back is 14.5. So I've the front is ready. Now to the back, I marked out shoulder to bust point 10 inches. Shoulder to my waist, I told you shoulder to my waist for the back is 14.5. Then from my waist to hip is 7 inches. So I've marked out my vertical and I've indicated the horizontal line. Now on my shoulder, I'll mark the shoulder width. Then the neck width, the same thing with the front, 2.5, but the depth of the front depth is 1 inches I use. Then I slope my shoulder by 1 inches. Then I'll be bringing out my armhole depth of 7.5 inches. Then I'll look for the midpoint and bring out the curve of the armhole. Now, after I'm done with that, then I'll interpret my bust. My bust is 8.5 plus 1 inch is allowance. Please always add the ease allowance because the shirt is not a fitted one, so you need to add the ease allowance. Now the ease allowance is different from seam allowance. Ease allowance allow you to wear it with comfort, without, it will not be tight on you. So that's what I'm adding. Now after I'm done adding all my measurements, or after interpreting all my measurements, I connect it back and bring out the shape of the block. Now I'll interpret my apex to apex, that's my nipple to nipple. Now before that, I'll bring out the chest line. So this is me bringing out, marking out the chest line. So I decided to use a broken line. Then I went back to my armhole and look for the midpoint of my armhole, then go in by quarter inches. The front I went in by half inches, but the back I'll be going in by quarter inches. Now I'm done with that. Then I'll move to the waistline and mark my waist, my dart measurement. Now I'm interpreting my apex to apex measurement, which is my nipple to nipple, 7 divided by 2, 3.5. So that's what I'm marking on the bust, waist, and down towards the hip. Now on the waistline, I will mark half inches as the leg of the dart, half inches. My waist measurement plus my dart allowance and my ease allowance. So the wood that is getting to the chest line. You can see it's starting from the chest line. Now after I'm done with that, I'll go back to the midpoint of my armhole and bring out the princess seam. So the princess seam is going to is connecting to the center line. Yes, you can see it's connecting to the center line. Now at my center back, I'll be marking a dart of half inches up to the chest line and down towards the hip. Now then after I'm done with that, I'm cutting out my pattern. Now after cutting the pattern, I'll take off this dart. The dart is to take care of the back bulge. So this is me labeling my pattern as the center back. So the back pattern is ready. Now the next thing is I'll place the two patterns together, that's the front and the back. I'll align them at the shoulder point and take the round of my armhole. Now the reason why I'm taking this is because I want to draft the sleeve. So I need this measurement to draft my sleeve. So I'm taking the crown of the sleeve. So I have another pattern. I've marked the sleeve length. Now from the sleeve length, I went back to the up and marked from the tip 4.5 inches as my sleeve cap. So on that sleeve cap, I'll interpret my bicep plus my ease allowance. Then I'll look for the midpoint of the bicep and draw a straight line up. So from that my straight line, I'll mark from the tip 2 inches down. I'll place my tip and mark 2 inches. Now from that 2 inches, I'll bring my curve ruler and curve the crown of the sleeve. So you can see the way I placed the ruler. So watch the video and follow exactly the way I did to get the crown of my sleeve. Then I will measure what I have to check if what is I have on my armhole. So I'm done with that. Then I'll move to the hem of the sleeve. Now the hem of the sleeve, I want to use exactly what I have on my bicep, but I added 2 inches extra because the sleeve is a bell sleeve, so the down part is wider than the bicep. So I went back and checked the crown to check if what I have on my armhole is accurate with the sleeve. So I have exactly. So I'll be cutting out my sleeve. Now I'm done cutting the sleeve. The next thing is to label the pattern as the sleeve. Now I'm moving to the front body. Then on my front body, I'll mark the length I want for the blouse. Then I'll be curving it at the hemline. So at that point, I curved it out with 1 inches. So I'll be trimming it off. So I've actually reduced the length of the blouse to my desired length. Now from there, I'll mark from the end. I'll mark 5 inches. The shirt has a slit at the front. and the wideness at the down is 2 inches. Yes, 2 inches away from your button allowance. Now from that point, I will take a new line. I'll mark it from my bust point to where my slit is going to stop. So I want to close my bust dart and my waist dart and transfer it to that point. So watch how I'll be transferring my bust dart to that point. Yes, I want to transfer it to the center point. So this is me cutting out the new line. You can see the way I'm slashing it. I've slashed the bust dart too, then I'll close it and tape it down. Yes, you can see the new line as the width has increased, meaning the dart has moved to that point. Now I'll be closing the waist dart too. Now the waist dart too, I'll close it. Now this particular shirt style is achieved with a method called uh, that manipulation. So I'm transferring my waist dart to that same line. You can see the width of the dart has also increased the moment I close the waist dart. So I'm blending out the hem. So this is the new dart leg. Now this dart, now I will now be taking it as a chalk. Yes, I've added another extra paper at the down. You can see here the way I folded it. This is the new chalks. Now I will fold it to the center of my button allowance. Yes, you can see the way it's lapping on each other. Now I'll move back to the back pattern and cut out the princess line and cut the length I want. The length I cut for the front, it has to be equal. So I'm cutting the same length for the back. So I'll move my pattern back and I'll be bringing out the material used to sew and place it and add my seam allowance. So that's the next thing I'll be doing. So I'm just trying to check my pattern if it aligns at the side seam and is looking aligned. So these are all my pattern. Now the fabric I'll be using is a crepe material. So I use 1.5 yard for this particular shirt blouse. So I'll place all my pattern and mark my seam allowance. Now I added half inches for seam, but at the side I added 1 inches. So for the front too, that was the same thing I did. All my pattern. Now the next thing is to cut out the material I'll be using for the loop. So I cut it out 1.5. Now this is me adding interfacing to the button side. Yes, the button allowance. I added my interfacing, then I folded it, then I'll be sewing it. I'll go to my sewing machine and sew it. So I've sewn it and this is how it's looking. Now I've pressed my top. You can see the way it's looking. Then I'll mark from my shoulder to my under bust. So that's where the closing is starting from. So I'll place this side, I'll align it on my button allowance. You can see the way I'm marking it. Then I'll turn it to the wrong side and I'll note that point and turn it to the wrong side. Then I'll be closing it. Yes, I'll be sewing from that point down. So from where I marked, that's from my under bust, I'll be sewing it. So this is how it's looking. I've closed it at the center point. So you can see the way the chalks is looking already. Now the next thing is to press it out properly, press it down and press it out properly. Then I'll move to the back pattern. Now on my back, I'll be placing where my loop will start from. So it's starting from the bust line and it will stop 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches before the hem line. So I'll notch the point. Then the length I'm cutting for the loop is 2.5. Each loop is going to be 2.5. Then the distance from each of them is 1.5 inches. So I've sewn them. You can see the way it's looking. Then I'm placing both the center, back, and the side. I will be closing it now after I've sewn my loop. So I've sewn it, and this is how it's looking. So I've sewn the other side. Then I'll be closing it at the center point. Yes, I'll be closing the center line, this center back. I've closed it and I've pressed it. You can see the way the loop is looking. Now I'll join the front and the back shoulder. I'll be joining it at the shoulder point. I'll join the shoulder and with half inches that I added, and on the side seam I'll be sewing it with 1 inches that I added. So I've joined them, and this is how the shirt is looking already. You can see the front and the back. So the next thing is I've joined my sleeve. So I'll be aligning it, and I've joined the sleeve to the body of the shirt. Now the next thing is to hem the down part. So I've hem it, and this is how the hem part is looking. So you can see the shirt is ready. Now the next thing is to fix our collar. Now to fix the collar, I'll have to draft my collar. Now I draw out a vertical and horizontal line. Now on the vertical line is the length I want for the collar, while the horizontal is I'll be interpreting my neck width. So on that part, so my neck width I got for the shirt, including the button allowance, is 18.5. So after getting the 18.5, the collar stand is 1.2 inches. So that's what I marked, 1.2. That's the width. Now from there I curved it out with 1/4 and 1/2 inches. Then I brought the collar stand. You can see the difference between the collar stand and this collar is 1 inches. So on that center point, I'm taking 1/2 inches. Then is a dart. That's the difference between the stand and the collar. So I'll be curving it out, that dart. You can see the way I place my ruler, so I'll be marking it. So that's the dart that differentiates the stand and the collar. So after I'm done with that, I'll just curve it out and cut out my, yes, I'm curving it out with 1/2 inches. So this is the stand, and that's the collar. So it's two-piece collar. So this is me cutting out the collar. So the next thing is to transfer it on my fabric and add interfacing. Now I've transferred it on my fabric, I've added interfacing, and I also cut facing for it. So after I'm done with that, I place the collar in between, and the stand and the interfacing on top and the down. So I've joined it, and this is how the whole thing is looking. Now the next thing is to join it, starting from the middle point of it, and pin it down to the front. So on both sides, so I've joined them, and now the blouse is ready. If you enjoy watching this video, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, and drop a nice comment in the comment section. See you in my next video.